A silver dealer looked a customer dead in the eyes and said, "If I were you, I would not buy silver right now." And the customer was confused because this was the guy who was supposed to be selling it. If you are interested in money, finance, or changing your financial future, like this video and subscribe right now, because what you are about to learn can change the way you see money forever. Now think about that for a second. A dealer, someone whose entire income depends on people buying silver, someone who profits every single time a coin or bar walks out the door. That person told a customer not to buy. And when the customer asked why, the answer was so brutally honest, so uncomfortable, that the customer sat down and did not speak for almost a full minute. I'm going to tell you exactly what that dealer said. But first, you need to understand something deeper about why so many regular people are quietly losing money on silver right now without even realizing it. Because here's the thing. Silver is one of the most emotionally loaded assets on the planet. It is shiny. It is real. You can hold it in your hand. You can hide it under your bed. And when the world feels scary and the economy feels unstable, silver feels like safety. It feels like protection. It feels like something your grandfather would have approved of. And that feeling is exactly what is costing regular people thousands of dollars right now. Not because silver is bad, but because of the way most people are buying it, thinking about it, and expecting it to behave. Let me take you back to a small coin shop in a mid-sized American city. A guy named Marcus walked in. Marcus was 34 years old, worked a regular office job, made decent money, not rich, not broke, just somewhere in the middle like most of us. He had been watching YouTube videos about silver for months. He had seen the charts. He had heard the predictions. He had watched people talk about silver going to $100 an ounce, $200. Some people even said $500. And Marcus was excited. He felt like he had finally found a secret, like he had figured out something that the banks and the wealthy people did not want him to know. So he walked into that coin shop ready to buy, ready to finally do something smart with his money. And the dealer behind the counter, a man named Ray, who had been in the business for over 20 years, looked at Marcus and saw something he had seen 1,000 times before. He saw hope mixed with misunderstanding. And instead of just making the sale, Ray did something unusual. He asked Marcus one question, just one. He said, "What are you expecting silver to do for you?" And that question changed everything. Because Marcus had no clean answer. He stumbled. He said something about inflation, something about the dollar collapsing, something about how silver always holds value. And Ray nodded slowly, and then he said those words. "If I were you, I would not buy silver right now." Not because silver is worthless, not because it is a scam, but because of the reason Marcus wanted to buy it and the way he was planning to buy it. Silver was almost guaranteed to disappoint him, and disappointment with money never stays quiet. It spreads into stress, into regret, into bad decisions down the road. Now, I want to be honest with you about something before we go further. This video is not a silver hit piece. It is not trying to tell you silver is garbage or that you should never touch it. What this video is going to do is show you the exact traps that dealers, even honest ones, often do not fully explain. The things that turn what sounds like a smart investment into a slow, quiet financial drain. And by the end of this, you will understand not just silver, but how to think about any physical asset in a completely different way. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people who are buying silver right now have never once thought about the question Rai asked Marcus. They know they want silver. They do not know what they actually need silver to do. So let me walk you through the first thing Ray told Marcus. And this one hits hard because it is something that almost nobody in the silver community ever talks about openly. When you buy silver from a dealer, any dealer, you're already starting at a loss. Not a small loss. Sometimes a 10, 15, even 20% loss on day one. And this is called the premium. The premium is the extra amount you pay above the actual spot price of silver. The spot price is what silver is worth right now on the open market. But when you walk into a coin shop and buy a 1-ounce silver coin, you are not paying the spot price. You are paying the spot price plus the dealer's markup, plus manufacturing costs, plus sometimes collector value, plus sometimes shipping and insurance if you order online. And all of that gets stacked on top. So imagine silver is sitting at $30 an ounce right now. You might actually pay $35, $37, sometimes even $40 for that same ounce when you buy it from a dealer in coin form. That means silver does not just have to stay the same to keep your money safe. Silver has to go up sometimes by 15 to 20% just for you to break even. And nobody tells you this when they're showing you the shiny coins and talking about financial freedom. Marcus had not thought about this at all. He had been watching the silver spot price go up and down, thinking that if silver went from $30 to $35, he would make money. But if he bought at $37 due to premiums and silver went to $35, he would still be losing money even though silver went up. And this is where most people fail without even realizing it. Ray leaned across the counter and explained something else that made Marcus go quiet. He said that the premium problem is not just about buying, it is about selling too. Because when you're ready to sell your silver, the dealer does not buy it back from you at spot price either. The dealer buys it back below spot price. That is how dealers stay in business. They buy low, they sell high, which means your silver has to travel a long distance in price just to make you whole, just to give you back what you started with. And for the average salary worker buying a few ounces a month, that journey can take years. Sometimes it never happens. This is where the story gets even more interesting because Ray was not done. He said there was a second reason he was hesitant to sell to Marcus. And this one was not about price at all. It was about psychology. And I will explain this in a moment, but first, you need to understand something about why silver attracts a very specific kind of buyer, and why that attraction can become a financial trap in itself. Think about the type of content that gets people excited about silver. It is almost always fear-based. The dollar is dying. The economy is about to crash. The banks are going to collapse. The government is going to take everything. Buy silver before it is too late. And none of this is made up entirely. There are real concerns in the economy, real inflation, real debt problems, real currency issues. But the way this information gets packaged and delivered to regular people like Marcus creates a kind of emotional panic that leads to very poor financial decision-making. And when you're buying silver out of fear, you are not investing. You are reacting. And reacting with money is almost always expensive. Rai told Marcus about a customer he had seen 3 years earlier. A middle-class woman, 2 kids, worked as a school administrator. She had watched the same kind of content. She came in and spent $8,000 on silver in a single afternoon. She did not have a diversified portfolio. She did not have an emergency fund. She put $8,000 into physical silver because someone on the internet made her feel like if she did not act right now, everything she had was going to disappear. And 3 years later, silver had not done what the videos promised. It had moved up and down. It was roughly where it was when she bought, but she had paid big premiums, and she needed that $8,000 when an unexpected expense hit. But she could not get it back in full because the dealer buyback price was lower than what she had paid. She lost money. Not because silver is evil, but because fear made her decision, not strategy. And nobody talks about this part. Not the dealers who profit from the panic, not the YouTube channels that get more views when the fear level is higher. The cycle feeds itself while regular people pay the price. But wait, because here is where this story takes a turn that even most silver critics miss entirely. Rye did not just tell Marcus not to buy silver. He told him not to buy it for the wrong reasons in the wrong way. And that distinction matters more than almost anything else in this conversation. Because there are legitimate reasons to own silver. There are smart ways to own it. And there is a version of silver ownership that actually does protect people in real economic trouble. The problem is that this version looks almost nothing like what most people are doing. And understanding the difference is going to shift the way you see not just silver, but any physical store of value. Ray pulled out a piece of paper and drew two columns. On one side, he wrote what most buyers want silver to do. On the other side, he wrote what silver actually does well. And the gap between those two columns is where all the pain lives. Most buyers want silver to grow their wealth quickly. They want it to multiply like a stock. They want to buy at 30 and sell at 60 and feel like a genius. But silver historically does not do that reliably. Silver is not a growth asset in the way most people expect. It moves slowly, it swings wildly, and it can sit still for years at a time while everything else around it moves. If you bought silver in 2011 when it spiked near $50 an ounce, you waited over a decade before you even got close to that price again. Over a decade. If you were counting on silver to build your wealth, that decade was gone. And this is the reality shock moment that most silver buyers never face until it is too late. Silver is not a get-richer asset. It is a stay-alive asset. It is designed at its best to be a hedge, a small part of a larger plan, a backup, not a strategy. Ray looked at Marcus and said something that stayed with him for a long time. He said, "The people who do well with silver are not the people who are most excited about it. They are the people who are most boring about it. The boring people, the ones who buy a small amount consistently, store it safely, do not check the price every day, do not panic when it dips, do not celebrate when it spikes, and treat it as one quiet piece of a much larger financial puzzle. Not the hero, just a backup player doing a specific job." Now here is something that most content about silver completely glosses over, and it is something that Rye brought up next that genuinely surprised Marcus. Storage and insurance costs. When you own physical silver, you have a problem that you do not have with most other assets. You have to keep it somewhere safe, and keeping things safe costs money. If you keep it at home, you are taking on risk. What happens if there is a fire, a flood, a break-in? Your silver does not come with insurance by default. You have to add a rider to your homeowner's policy that costs money every year. Or you rent a safe deposit box at a bank that costs money every year. Or you use a private vault service that also costs money every year. None of this is dramatic on its own, but when you stack it on top of the premium you already paid to buy and the discount you will face when you sell, the real return on your silver needs to be even higher just to cover your carrying costs. And most people never do this math before they buy. Marcus sat back and started doing the numbers in his head, and something quietly broke inside his original plan. But here's the thing, and this is the part I really want you to hear. Rye was not trying to stop Marcus from buying silver forever. He was trying to stop him from buying silver the way most people buy it, which almost guarantees a bad experience, because there is a completely different approach, one that almost nobody talks about in the excitement of silver YouTube, that actually makes sense for regular people. Ray called it the insurance mindset versus the investment mindset, and the difference is everything. When you buy silver as an investment, you're expecting it to grow your money. You're measuring it against the stock market, against real estate, against crypto. And by that measure, silver almost always looks slow and disappointing. But when you buy silver as insurance, you are not comparing it to anything. You're buying a small amount of physical metal that exists outside the banking system, outside digital infrastructure, outside government policy. You are buying something that will have real-world value if the systems we all depend on have a very bad day. Not because you think that day is coming tomorrow, but because a small position in something real costs you almost nothing meaningful in the long run and gives you a layer of protection that nothing digital can replicate. The key word is small. A small position, not your retirement savings, not your emergency fund, not money you're going to need in the next 5 years. A small amount bought wisely, held calmly, stored securely, and never expected to make you rich. And that is a completely different conversation than what most people are having about silver. Most people are talking about silver like it is a lottery ticket or secret shortcut. And that framing is what sends them into the dealer's shop with big eyes and unrealistic expectations and money they probably should not be spending. So let me bring this all together in a way that is going to make the next thing Ray said even more powerful. Because after all of this, Marcus finally asked the question that had been building up the whole time. He said, "Okay, so should I buy anything? Is there anything worth buying right now?" And Ray smiled. And what he said next was not what Marcus expected at all. Ray said, "The best financial decision you can make before you buy any physical asset is to fix the invisible leaks in your current financial life." And Marcus did not understand at first. So Ray explained, he said that most people who walk into his shop are not financially free. They have debt. They have no emergency fund. They have no real savings plan. They are living paycheck to paycheck or close to it. And they are spending money on silver hoping it will somehow fix all of that. But silver cannot fix the leaks in your financial boat. It is not a pump. It is just metal sitting in a drawer while the water rises. He said the most powerful thing a regular person can do before buying any alternative asset is to get a clear picture of their actual financial position. How much do you make? How much do you owe? What are your monthly expenses compared to your income? What happens to your family if you lose your income for 3 months? These are the questions that matter before you ever buy a single ounce of anything. Not because buying silver is wrong, but because silver sitting in a safe does nothing for you if you are drowning in credit card debt at 20% interest. The interest on that debt is eating you alive while your silver sits still. This is the thing the silver community does not want to talk about. Because if everyone fixed their financial basics first, the pool of panicked buyers would shrink. And the people left buying silver would be the calm, boring, insurance-minded buyers who do not make dramatic YouTube videos about going all in. Marcus left that shop without buying anything that day, but he came back 6 weeks later with a plan. He had paid off his highest interest credit card. He had built a 1-month emergency fund. He had sat down and actually mapped out his financial life for the first time. Then he bought 2 ounces of silver, not because he expected to get rich, but because it felt like the right small step in a real plan. And Ray looked at him and said, "Now you're buying for the right reason." And here is why the moment matters so much to the story. Because the difference between Marcus on day 1 and Marcus 6 weeks later was not about silver at all. It was about clarity. It was about knowing what he actually needed and what role each piece of his financial life was supposed to play. And when you have that clarity, when you understand what every dollar is doing and why, even a simple purchase of 2 ounces of silver becomes a completely different act. It is no longer fear. It is no longer hope dressed up as strategy. It is an intentional, eyes-open decision made from a position of knowledge. And that kind of decision is what separates people who build real financial stability from people who chase the next shiny thing. Whether that shiny thing is silver or crypto or a hot stock tip from a coworker. Now I want to talk about one more thing before we reach the end of this story, because there is something Ray mentioned almost as an aside that actually deserves its own conversation. He said that some of the most dangerous silver advice in the world right now is not coming from bad people. It is coming from well-meaning people who genuinely believe what they are saying, but have a financial incentive tied to their belief. A dealer who only sells silver genuinely believes silver is great, not because they are lying, but because their entire world is built around silver. When your business depends on selling something, your perception of that thing becomes shaped by that dependence, whether you notice it or not. This is not a conspiracy. It is just human psychology. The same is true for YouTube channels that monetize silver content, affiliate links that pay commissions on purchases in online communities where social status is tied to how much you own. All of these forces push in one direction, which is toward buying more, buying sooner, and feeling like anyone who is not buying is missing something important. And that pressure is real, and it affects real people's real money. The antidote is not to distrust everyone. The antidote is to always ask two questions before any financial decision. What does this person gain if I say yes? And what does the worst realistic outcome look like if this goes wrong? If you can answer both of those questions honestly, your financial decisions will be 10 times better immediately. Ray knew what he stood to gain for Marcus, a sale, maybe a $100 profit on a few ounces. And instead of taking it, he chose to have a real conversation. Not every dealer would do that. Not every advisor, not every content creator, not every person selling anything would do that. But when you find someone who will tell you the uncomfortable truth, even when it costs them something, that person is worth listening to. Here is where everything changes. Because the lesson from Marcus and Ray is not just about silver. It is about every financial decision you will ever make. The question is never just, should I buy this thing? The question is always, what job am I hiring this thing to do? Am I hiring the right tool for that job? And have I done the foundational work that makes this tool actually useful in my life? Silver hired as insurance, bought with surplus money, stored wisely, and held calmly as a reasonable tool for a specific job. Silver hired as a get-rich shortcut, bought with money you cannot afford to lock up, loaded with expectations it was never designed to meet, is a recipe for disappointment that will quietly damage your financial confidence for years. And your financial confidence matters more than almost anything else, because the person who makes one bad decision and feels burned by it often overcorrects. They stop trying. They go back to the safety of a savings account earning almost nothing. They never invest again. They tell their friends that everything is a scam. And 10 years later, they are still in the same financial place, bitter and stuck because one early mistake with unrealistic expectations scared them away from the entire landscape of financial growth. That person deserved better information at the beginning, and that is what this video is trying to be. So what do you actually do with all of this? If you are someone who has been thinking about silver, here is the honest path forward. Get clear on your financial foundation first. Not forever, not as a years-long delay, but at a minimum, know your numbers. Know what you earn, what you owe, what you save, and what you would do if an emergency hit tomorrow. If that picture is solid, even imperfectly solid, then think about silver as a small piece, not the whole pie. Buy from reputable dealers, compare premiums, understand the buyback policy before you buy. Store it properly, insure it if needed, and then leave it alone. Do not stare at the price every day. Do not sell in a panic when it dips. Do not buy more in a frenzy when it spikes. Treat it like a smoke alarm in your house. You hope you never need it, but you are glad it is there. And if your financial foundation is not solid yet, then the most powerful thing you can do right now is not buy silver. It is spend the next 30 to 60 days understanding your own money. Make a real budget. Start a real emergency fund. Attack why our highest interest debt. These are boring, unsexy steps. They will not get 1 million YouTube views. Nobody's going to make you feel like a genius for doing them. But they are the foundation that makes every other financial decision you ever make more powerful. Because here is the final truth that this entire story has been building toward. Real financial security does not come from any single asset. Not silver, not gold, not crypto, not real estate, not stocks. Real financial security comes from understanding your own financial life clearly enough to make intentional decisions, and then building a collection of tools that each do their specific job well. Silver for the right person in the right situation with the right expectations can be one of those tools. But it is never the whole toolbox. And anyone who tells you otherwise is either mistaken or has something to gain from your belief. Marcus figured this out inside a small coin shop with an honest dealer who is willing to lose a sale to tell the truth. Most people never get that conversation. Most people find out the hard way with a stack of silver sitting in a drawer, a premium they cannot recover, and a plan that never quite came together the way the YouTube videos promised. You got that conversation today, right here. And what you do with it is your decision. You can keep chasing the shiny thing, buying into the fear, expecting a medal to fix a plan that was never a plan. Or you can slow down, get clear, build the foundation, and then add silver to your life in a way that actually serves you, instead of a dealer's bottom line. That choice belongs to you. And every single financial choice you make from here forward either builds the life you want or quietly pulls you further from it. There is no neutral. Every decision counts. If you learned something new today, make sure to subscribe to Money Insights and like this video. More powerful financial truths are coming.